What are they doing? Jeroboam's like, oh man, like wife, go disguise yourself, put on these different clothes, bring these cakes, do all these kind of things. Ahijah can't see anyway. He's wasting his time. It's like, what are you doing? I love it. But we waste our time a ton when we try to deceive and try to do that as well. But anyway, so guys, so this is just, I love it. So now Ahijah could not see. His sight was gone because of his age. But the Lord had told Ahijah, Jeroboam's wife is coming to ask you about her son, for he is ill. And you are to give her such and such an answer. When she arrives, she will pretend to be somebody else. Don't you love God? Like, God knows all and sees all. Right? You cannot hide. You cannot hide from God. And for some of you, that's like, whoa, that's scary. Right? And yet for all of us, honestly, it should be like, praise God, I don't have to be fake. I don't have to deceive anybody. For God knows me. He knows my heart. He knows my motivations. He knows me. I mean, I love that. I love that about God. God sees all. And yet they try to pretend to be somebody they're not. And God's like, what are you doing? I know you. And the challenge for us is, do you see yourself in Jeroboam's shoes? Are you pretending to being someone else? Are you living a life that is not authentic before God? Are you kind of covering up? You know, hey, well, no, we're the really nice, suburban family, 2.5 kids, white fence, beautiful home, all that kind of stuff. And yet all this junk and garbage is going on in your home. I mean, are you being real? God sees all and knows all. Are you trying to pretend to be in someone else? You're dating somebody. Do they know the real you? Do they know it? Do they know all the junk? Does your spouse know the worst part of you? Do they know the worst part? One of the greatest things about marriage, a healthy marriage, is your spouse knows the worst thing about you and loves you anyway. And you know how that happens? Through relationship with God. Does your roommate, does your closest friend know the worst thing about you? Are you real before people? When you gather in your small group, are you real? Or do you kind of pretend, unwilling to share that deep thing that's going on? The first choice that we need to make is to choose authenticity over deception. We must choose authenticity over deception. One of the big struggles I had in September and October of this last year was with the vision of this church. I may have shared this with you before, but it was a struggle for me. I did not know. If you would have asked me, what's next? What was the vision? Where are we going? All those kind of things. I didn't know what to say to you. In October, we do this generosity audit. And I remember sitting in this room with the elders of our church, sitting in all these rooms with small group leaders and all these people. And yet there was the last night, we sat around with the consultant, and all of us elders were sitting around. And the consultant says to us, what your church needs next is you need to know what the vision is. So she says, what's the vision? And everyone looks at me. At that moment, I remember feeling this big. At that moment, I just remember feeling, what am I going to do? Am I going to lie and deceive and be somebody that I'm not and make up something, because I could do that? Or am I going to be real and authentic before these people and say, I don't know? that night, it was a serious struggle. Because I'm thinking in my head, I'd fire a pastor who doesn't know the vision of a church. I let him go. I say, thank you very much. You did a great job. We'll see you later. But I chose authenticity. I said, I don't know. And at that point, God began to work and move. And began to give vision. Began to give affirmation to that vision. And began to give clarity to all those things. And I just say that, just to say to you, choose authenticity over deception. Be who you are, where you are. Because as soon as you begin deception, as soon as you begin living the lie, what happens? It's so much harder to get out of it, right? It's so much more difficult to begin to be real. So you keep going down this journey and you find yourself in this place where you look back and you go, I'm living a lie. I'm not who I am. Choose authenticity over deception. People, we want to be and we need to be people who are real with one another. If you are at a place where you're like, man, I just don't want to follow God right now, say that. Tell God, share with Him. Right now I'm just struggling with you. Psalms are filled with crying out to God. Find a close friend. Find somebody that you could say it to. I'm struggling. I called somebody yesterday, about 1:30, 2 o'clock, had a bad day, the whole deal, and I said, this is where I'm at, man. This is where I'm at. I'm just letting you know. You need to know. Choose authenticity over deception. When you're in the midst of that temptation, that struggle, be real with God and be real with somebody else. Because you know what? God knows it anyway. He sees and knows all. He knows it anyway. So be real. Be authentic. When you're torn between being authentic or being deceptive, choose authenticity. Be real. Okay? All right. So that's the first choice we need to make. And now we're going to kind of move to the heart of why we deceive. What's the heart of it? If we can go back to verses 2 and 3 of chapter 14, we're going to kind of see the heart here and the second choice that we need to make in these verses. And Jeroboam said to his wife, go disguise yourself so you won't be recognized as the wife of Jeroboam. Then go to Shiloh. Ahijah the prophet is there, the one who told me I would be king over this people. Take 10 loaves of bread with you, some cakes, and a jar of honey. Go to him. He will tell you what will happen to the boy. Once again, Jeroboam has this thing that he thinks he can control. He thinks he's got his life under control. He thinks he can manipulate the situation. He thinks he can kind of make his way around the deal. And he wants to know that positive result. He wants to hear a positive word about his son. He wants to think he can do all this kind of stuff. And Jeroboam just doesn't get the reality. He doesn't get the reality that God is present in every circumstance. What Jeroboam's view of the world is, it's just people playing the game of life. God is kind of distant. God is out there. But God is not necessarily involved, and therefore we can kind of manipulate people. We can kind of do what we want to do. And our God, people, our God is not distant. Our God is present.